I remember we all went to brunch and I was telling the ladies, like, listen, I'm going to bring them home. Like, we're not going to go back there. And actually, slowly after we left, a few of them actually ended up transferring to private schools. They didn't
Mhm.
think they could make the homeschool jump, so they
Yep.
actually left as well. So I think out of the 5 or 6 of them, there was only maybe one left at that school by the time
Mhm.
8th grade came around. And I remember sitting down with those ladies and I was like, I know that the biggest transition for him is going to be not seeing them every day.
Mhm.
And I said, "So, I really want to be really intentional about us making time for them to see one another, for them to hang out."
Welcome to the Homeschool Connections Podcast. I'm your host, Kaitlin Zara, and I'm so glad you're spending some time with me today. New episodes drop every week, so make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. All right, mamas, grab your coffee, press play, and let's homeschool together. Today, we've got the wonderful Rachel Bulman here to talk all about the call that her family felt to start homeschooling during middle school. Rachel, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to talk to you today because this is a really interesting, exciting topic to me. Your kids were in a traditional school. Now you've made the decision to homeschool. You've got 2 of them in middle school right now. Can you start by sharing your family's story? What led you to begin homeschooling for middle school?
Sure. So, we're really lucky right around where we're in Central Florida, and we have a
Mhm.
great school system here.
Yeah.
And when my oldest was going into school, we were kind of pondering, are we gonna homeschool or are we gonna
Mhm.
send him to school? And happened to get like there's a lottery to enter into the magnet school system and the school system. So
Mhm.
he won the lottery, if you will. And so we went up and did like a quick tour of the school and they had a lot of hands-on stuff. And I remember when we got in the car, he asked me, he said, Mom, he's like, is that real life, the stuff that they said? I was like, yes. And he's like, well, then I want to go to school here. And so
Mhm.
we talked about it and I actually knew the assistant principal. We had grown up together, and so I
Mhm.
knew he was gonna be in good hands.
Yep.
So he entered into the school system, and it's an international baccalaureate system, so where they go into an elementary school, and then it feeds into an IB middle school, and then feeds into
Mhm.
an IB high school. So he goes into that, it's fantastic, and gets all the way through, and now every other sibling is grandfathered in, so you don't have to apply in the future,
Wow.
they just automatically get into the school. And now, for those that aren't aware, it is part of the public school system. Even though it's a charter school
Mhm.
or a magnet school, it's still part of the public school system. So he enters in, it's great. After that, he goes into the middle school, which is the next IB step.
Mhm.
And that first year at the middle school was just horrible. I mean,
How
he was having
so?
a great the school was supposed to be very rigorous. It was the only
Mhm.
A middle school in basically within driving distance for us.
Yeah.
And so I thought this is going to be academically challenging. He's very
Mhm.
academic. So he goes in, he never had any homework, which,
Mm.
that's not a great telltale sign. But I was like, gosh, you're finishing everything at school. He's like, yeah. He goes, when I'm done in class, I just do my homework. And I remember thinking, like, that's strange. And then I'd ask him things like, what are you doing today at school? And he was like, I don't really know. And then I'd look at his
Mhm.
agenda. There wasn't anything in the agenda. Really
Mhm.
wasn't getting a lot of communication. And then there were some couple of cases of bullying, not
Mhm.
anything that was violent or horrible, but things where I thought I needed to be informed. And they weren't really informing me
Mhm.
about those. And I actually had a long conversation with the dean at that time. And he's no longer there. But I had asked him, I said, in most cases, you would have called me. And he goes, well, we can't call everyone, was his response. I can't call every
Mhm.
report. And I let him have it. I just said, my kids and I have a great conversation. We have a great open relationship. He tells me everything without me asking a lot. And he knows that he's loved. And I was like, but you're going to
Mhm.
face a lot of kids that might not be in that same situation. And if something were
Mhm.
to turn tragic, this is on you. And I was like, but those
Mhm.
kind of conversations need to be had. And so after that, I remember my husband and I just looked at our son and we were like, this is the last year. Like, you're going to come home after this,
Mhm.
because the only other option would then be to go to a different public school.
Mhm.
And because it was the only A school, we didn't really want to take an academically lesser
Yep.
option. So we ended up bringing him home. And I mean, that first year was just something else for us, and we're in Florida, and so in Florida, they do have a fantastic scholarship program for those that aren't aware,
Okay.
and you can it's actually open for everyone, and all you do is apply, the money gets kind of divvied up in a way to all the applicants, and you get a pretty sizable chunk to cover your homeschool expenses,
Awesome.
and we didn't know about it that first year. So that first year was just us trying to figure it out. So Gabriel was home. He was in 7th grade. And at the same time, his brother ended up coming home because he was in 6th
Mhm.
grade. And so then that first year was really more about unschooling for us, I
Mhm.
think, and just kind of being like, okay, we kind of have to get you out of the realm of realizing that work can only be done in this place and in this way. So for me, I was still doing I speak nationally and
Mhm.
write and do those kind of things. I was like, I don't know how we can, because I'd never imagined I'm going to be a homeschool mom.
Mhm.
I was never the Pinterest mom. I was never like, let me sit down and teach you the entire alphabet today and all these things. I
Mhm.
was just not that mom. So I was definitely afraid that first year, like, how are we going to do this? And so we ended up making it through and making that decision. And now that decision has stuck to bring every kid home from middle school, unless something changes drastically with our options, that's going to be the step going forward.
Very cool. I think that is so cool. I was a public school teacher myself, and I really understand so much from what you're sharing now that it really can be hard from the school's point of view to differentiate for different learning styles and for
Hmm.
that child that really needs enrichment. But the teachers, they have to rise to the occasion. And I
Right.
remember giving never extra work, but more creative work and different
Sure.
projects for those students. And when your child is not enriched in that way, learning becomes a burden. It becomes get a sheet done and then
Yeah.
just move on. And when learning is not fun and you take the curiosity out, you can almost see grades slide in the opposite direction because they lose the motivation to study
Right.
and to do what they've got to do in class. So, Rachel, I'm so curious. A lot of parents are feeling like I think the opposite of you in the way that they'll homeschool for elementary school and then think, oh, we've got to send them for middle school, the rigor, the education. But you were
Sure.
able to create the rigor at home. Tell me about how you did that. Do you use any kind of co op or tutors or online courses? Are you relearning calculus and teaching it to your kids? What are you
Right.
doing? Give us the secrets.
Sure. So one of the things is that, like I said, that first year was really about unschooling. And so I had a lot of great friends that I met with a lot of different moms that had been homeschooling around my area. And I
Hmm.
remember they were like, oh, there's this great co-op and you could do this. And I was like, all of that sounds like too much to me. It was like,
Yep.
I really want to disconnect my calendar from anyone else's calendar. And
Hmm.
remember, we still had kids that were in the public school system. So we still had to adhere to their calendar,
Yep.
but I really wanted my boys especially to feel free in that first year. So I was like, we're just not going to do that. We're not going to hook up
Hmm.
to any co-op. I don't want to make sure that you're like, we have to be in a certain place on a certain day. I
Yep.
want you to be able to really kind of be free in a way. And so here's the kicker. I was unaware of the different learning styles of my boys
Hmm.
until I brought them home. So my oldest really needed, like I said, he was very academic. So he really needed a teacher, someone
Hmm.
that is going to sit there and go through things. So when I had time, it was beautiful and wonderful when we could do that. And if I'm honest, it probably only happened 2 or 3 times every couple of weeks that we could sit
Hmm.
down and I'm like, all right, let's go through this stuff together. Let's walk through this. And they really enjoyed that. My other son, is very independent. Like, he is just one of those kids that you're like, "I need you to do X, Y, and Z," and
Yep.
he does them thoroughly all the way through 110%, and he's like, "Okay,
Mhm.
what's next? I've done X, Y, and Z." So just very different, someone that really needs someone to kind of teach them and walk with them and hold them to accountability, and the other that didn't really need that. And so trying to
Mhm.
balance that was really interesting. But the what we ended up doing was kind of pulling curriculum from a bunch of different places, looking at what this curriculum offers in math and English or Latin and saying, "Hey, let's do just this part and let's do it
Mhm.
this way." Like, they've kind of given me a lesson plan, but that won't work for my life, so let's kind of divvy it up. And I know that there were some moms that when I told them that, they were like, "What? You you did what? I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, and for us in Florida, if you're not part of this scholarship program, at the end of the year, it was really just about having a portfolio, being able to prove that you did do work and that there was something that was learned at home, and then having someone that is certified be able
Mhm.
to give you that okay and kind of sign the paperwork for you. When you enter into the scholarship program, it's different. You have to have a test at the end of the year. Um, and so it's been really, really beautiful because my oldest son, and now he's in high school, so he went back into the public school system. He ended up going into the IB program. And I remember there were things that he was kinda like, "Why do we have to do this? Like, why are you I thought I was getting out of that, and you're trying to make me learn this physics course, or why
Mhm.
are we even doing Latin? Like, no one's gonna even offer that." When he went into the IB system, I remember calling the school, and I was like, "Listen, he's been homeschooling. What are your foreign language requirements? What does he need to
Mhm.
know before he gets there?" And the guidance counselor was like, "Well, we have Spanish and German." I laughed. I was like, "You have German?" And they were like, "Yes." And I was like, "Why?" And she goes, I don't I don't really know. And I was like, "Okay, great. Good times." So, but my son, a couple of the big wins for us was that he ended up choosing as an elective physics
Mhm.
for his freshman year. So he gets in the class, it's all upperclassmen, and they take like a test to see where you're at as you're coming into the course that summer. Like, what do I need to go over again? Or, just to see where you're at on the baseline. And he gets a 98 on the
Wow.
test. So he
Wow.
comes home and I'm like, "What did you do?" He goes, "Yeah." He's like, "Got a 98 on this course," and all the seniors and juniors were like, "Who are you? And how did you get here?" And I was like, "How did you know that?" And he's like, "It's that science stuff that you made us read all the time." And I'm
Wow.
like, "You're dang right." So then that was the first thing. And then the other big win was that he goes into Spanish. He had taken, because they needed to do a Spanish 1 course. So he took like a virtual course while he was also doing Latin here at home, and he hated it. It was like, "Why are you making me take 2 language courses?" And I'm like, "We're not gonna give up on the Latin because that is the root of all of our language, so it's important for you to
Mhm.
learn that, and I promise that it'll be a great stepping stone." So he goes into the Spanish 2 course at school, and it's a different thing. There's really no, he doesn't have a textbook in the course. I've asked him multiple times, I can't sit next to him in class. I'm like, "How do you learn this?" And he's like, "I don't know." So the first time that he came home and was kind of having trouble in the course, we started talking about the conjugation of whatever verbs he was
Mhm.
learning. And I said, "Buddy," I was like, "Do you remember that in Latin, I used to make you like say it over and over again at the beginning of every day, and you guys thought it was so
Mhm.
dumb, but you memorized it. Like that kind of rhetoric made you memorize it." And I said, "Let's
Mhm.
take your Spanish and let's put it in the same charts that we did in Latin."
Mhm.
So we sit down, he puts it in the same exact kind of chart with the verbs and with the pronouns or the subjects, and he's like, "This all makes sense now." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, you're
So
welcome."
cool.
So but it was it I don't think I have any great secrets other than to just listen to them and see what's working and be willing to back off. I think that
Mhm.
after my first especially, I remember thinking like, "No, this is the right way." And I kind of let
Mhm.
that school mentality kind of enter into our
Yeah.
homeschool mentality
Mhm.
and going, "No, this is they told me X, Y, and Z would work, and this is what we have to do." And then after kind of flubbing, dropping the ball on the 10-yard line, I'm like, "Okay, well, we gotta we gotta change this up." And so being willing to say, "What does he need? Does he needs me to go through this more?" And so letting go of whatever schedule or timeline I had to really be able to be there for them in the times when they needed it the most.
That's beautiful. I think we all make that mistake at some point, like all of us,
Right.
that we do school at home. Like, let's replicate exactly it's like almost to the
Right.
point where I could ring a bell and be like, "Okay, it's time for math. We did
Yeah.
enough English." And it's a trap that we fall into thinking that that will keep us in line with what
Exactly.
everybody else is doing, and we're gonna be learning and keeping up with our peers that are in a private or public school. And it's just not the case. But it
Mhm.
sounds like you have done a phenomenal job, like you said, learning about learning styles, starting with unschooling, which I know is such a popular way of transitioning into homeschooling if your kids have been in a traditional brick and mortar school before.
Mhm.
And it sounds like your kids are doing so exceptionally well. I want to hear a little bit about what the transition was like for them emotionally and socially, because now
Sure.
these are kids who have been in traditional school all of this time, and now they're making this huge life change. At Franciscan University in Steubenville, students live the truth of the gospel in a vibrant Catholic community that unites faith and reason in every major. 20% of Franciscan students come from a homeschool background. Plus, high school juniors and seniors can earn college credit through Franciscan's dual enrollment. Learn more at franciscan.edu.
Yeah, so my oldest, he was really lucky. I think that it kind of is a roll of the dice of, because you kind of go into this grade level in the public school system and then these are your friends. All these
Yep.
kids, these 90 kids that you're in this grade level with, these have to be your friends.
Mhm.
And so for my oldest, he found an incredible group of young men to become friends with. The moms, I'm really close with all the moms. And so it after we decided that we were going to come home, I remember we all went to brunch and I was telling the ladies, like, listen, I'm gonna bring them home. Like, we're not gonna go back there. And actually, slowly after we left, a few of them actually ended up transferring to private schools. They didn't
Mhm.
think they could make the homeschool jump, so they
Yep.
actually left as well. So I think out of the 5 or 6 of them, there was only, maybe 1 left at that school by the time
Mhm.
8th grade came around. And I remember sitting down with those ladies and I was like, I know that the biggest transition for him is going to be not seeing them every day.
Mhm.
And I said, "So, I really want to be really intentional about us making time for them to see one another, for them to hang out." And so we did that for the most part, and then he had his iPad that had, uh,
Yep.
his email address, to be able to communicate with them via iMessage. And so we made some time for that, and then Gabriel also plays, competitive soccer. And so because of that being a place where a lot of his friends also played competitive soccer, it was still a place for him to, quote, unquote, "be social" in the
Mhm.
way that we imagine that they're supposed to be social. And so for him, the transition was difficult in the sense that he didn't get to see them every day. And he had to be really more intentional about when I have this free time, I need to figure out how I'm still going to keep in touch with my friends. And so we had a lot of, screen time. We had a lot of time that you're
Mhm.
allowed to be able to reply to them. And
Yep.
they actually developed their kind of own schedule. Okay, so we're gonna get on here today and we're gonna do this and play this game, or can I go to meet so and so to play some soccer down at the Y and things like that. And so just being able to kind of do that for them. And we're a busy household. I mean, there's 6 kids here and
Yep.
and then the different things that my husband and I are also involved in. And
Uh-huh.
so it wasn't always an ideal situation, but we tried to make that work. Now for my other son, he wasn't as lucky in that sense. He didn't have the same group of kids
Mhm.
that I think was as tight knit as my oldest. But the really beautiful things that happened was that we found other ways that are not an 8 to 3 p.m. timeline that they're together. So soccer, there's also this program down here called a cotillion, which is like it's a thing where you go and just learn manners and different ballroom dances.
Beautiful.
And so because of the way that they do cotillion, it's kind of pushed into the school system and that's where they get all
Mhm.
of their students. And so
Mhm.
I made sure that if they're going to cotillion, they're still going with that same age group and that same group of kids. And so they were still able to see each other during that time period. And they still get together for holidays and things like that. And so I
Mhm.
think that one of the big things for us was to open up some other ways. Now, if your social component of the school system is now gone, what other ways are you going to be able to provide that for them? And
Mhm.
so for both of them, it was having more intentional time outside of school, making sure that they can have quote unquote play dates. I don't think they call them that now when they're
Mhm.
like 14, but time for them to hang out. And then having other things that they know that they're going to see their friends there and we're going to have our friends come over for this. And then we're extremely lucky, my husband and I, that we have a great group of young adults that come over to our house pretty regularly. And so our kids get to kind of grow up knowing that they are good
Mhm.
and holy and passionate about life, young people that
Mhm.
they can look up to that actually help to fashion them in such a way and really give them the ability to be extroverted in ways that they probably wouldn't be if they didn't have this great group of people that come over and are like big brothers and big sisters for them. And I think that that has really played a huge role in the way that they interact with other people outside of our home and even outside of these social situations. So it's been a great blessing. But I have not seen any kind of setback for them as far as their social awareness or the way that they interact. And I think that I, I mean, I would go far as to say that that is that's a lie. So
Yeah. It's the socialization myth, like, it's this myth, this
yes,
idea that we are going to somehow crawl under a rock, not talk to other humans, not interact, not have
right.
conversations, not go out and play. It all still happens when we homeschool. Rachel, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about you. You're talking about your kids and their social life, but I'm thinking about you. You are a mom to many. You are an author, a speaker, a deacon's wife. You are a busy gal. And there is no classroom that you're sitting at with women who are the same age as you every day. And what I'm
Sure.
thinking about is that you have to also be intentional about your relationships and your friendships. And that by teaching your kids this as middle schoolers, it's really training them for the real world because
Hmm.
this idea that we're gonna spend the rest of our lives in a classroom of 20 to 30 similarly aged, peers is just it's not true. We're not gonna life is not gonna work that way, and we
Right.
are gonna have to make the time to send the text, to make the call, to invite the friends over for holidays and for dinners, and to do those things, like you said, repeatedly with intention. So, I think that the way that you have taught or supported your son's socialization through homeschooling actually is gonna equip them to have stronger relationships in adulthood.
I hope so. I hope so because that is definitely something that they see. They see how busy we are, but there are still times when they'll be like, "Well, where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to go meet the ladies for trivia, or I'm
Mm.
gonna go have coffee with so and so." And they're like, "Again?" And I'm like, "Listen, I'm like, I have to do that because mommy needs to remember that." Not that I'm a daughter, that I'm a wife, and that I'm a mother in that order. And any
Mhm,
time that we kind of fall out of that ordained order that God has given to us, we
mhm,
start to grasp. We start to forget who we are. We start to grasp onto our children to replace our spouse. We start to grasp onto our spouse to replace our children,
mhm.
or just forgetting that we're a daughter altogether. And it's such an important thing that every person needs to know that in order for me to be a good wife, I have to be a good daughter. In order for me to be a good mother, I have to be a good spouse and a good daughter first. And when they get out of order, we start to forget who we are.
It's such great advice for all homeschooling parents, especially for those who are the unexpected homeschooling parents who maybe thought
Yeah.
to themselves, "How am I gonna manage working, helping support my child's education, and my own, social life to, like you said, be a daughter, be a wife, be a friend?"
Hmm.
Such sound great advice, Rachel. I wanna know, this sounds like you've had an incredible time homeschooling so far, these 2 wonderful sons of yours, but what has been the biggest challenge in homeschooling at this stage, and how have you
Sure.
worked through it?
Sure. So I think one of the things that happen and I'm sure it happens to school teachers when they're in the middle of someone not quite getting it or not wanting to do it. That's probably one of the biggest issues that we have is that I'm not sitting down and checking work every single day when they finish it, you know?
Mhm.
None of us have time for that.
Nope.
If you do, let me know. Find me on social media. Let me know how you make that happen. But for us, we just didn't have that. So I'm checking work every couple of weeks. I'm
Mhm.
sitting down maybe at the end of the week. And there were multiple times that I'll sit down and I'm like, huh, I don't think you've done math for like 4 days. And they're like, "Oh, no, oh, yeah, I didn't." Like, it's like,
Mhm.
"What?" And so, there were definitely times that we've gone through that. And so sitting there and just kind of trying to turn it over in my mind and talking to my husband about it, I'm like, "What are we
Mhm.
doing wrong? Like, what maybe we're
Mhm.
just not cut out. Let's send them off. Let's go send them
Right.
back." And my husband, in all of his wisdom, he would look at me and go, "So what are the reasons that we brought him home?" And I'm like, X, Y, and Z." And he's like, "Have those changed?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Okay, then we're not gonna send him back to school. We're gonna figure this out." And so just like I said in that first question, I think was, you have to be willing to say, "Man, this isn't working. Like, what do I need to do?"
Mhm.
Maybe I need to say, "We don't have to finish this entire textbook by
Mhm.
May 28th." Maybe I need to say, maybe we can only do math every other day. Maybe
Mhm.
maybe I need to sit back and give them a little bit of a break on this. They can recalibrate. And then just kind of we just brought my daughter home, and she is in 6th grade now. And so those first few days, I think she had it in her mind that she was gonna come home and, like, I'm just gonna be free as a bird. Like, I don't really have to do anything here. And so I intentionally tried to ease her into it. Like, we're gonna do 1 subject today, and then we'll do 2
Mhm,
tomorrow, and then maybe after that,
mhm.
we'll add a 3rd and just kind of,
Yep.
layering it so that she could ease herself into it. But there are still days where she wakes up like we all do, and you're like,
Mhm.
"I don't really wanna do this." And so we just sit down and I go, "Hey, why don't you just try to do what you can? I don't want you to lose yourself in the midst of this,
Yep.
and then we can do this tomorrow." But it has to be done. Like, I don't
Mhm.
care if you want to stay up late tonight, if you wanna do it on Saturday,
Right.
but it has to be done. If you need this day, then you need this day, I get it, but you still have a responsibility to still learn. This is not
Mhm.
homeschool as in you have no school. This is
Mhm.
homeschool as in the home is the orientation of your learning,
Mhm.
and then school comes after that. And so we'll figure out what's gonna work for you. This is what's worked for us in the past. We're gonna figure out what is unique for you. And so I think those are the biggest challenges is just really paying attention and doing what we say we want to do, which is to love them. And if
Mhm.
love is willing the good of the other, then I have to be willing to will that above my own expectations, above what's convenient for us, above what's worked in the past, and really look at each person as the unique and unrepeatable person that they are and
Mhm.
say, what can I do for you? And how does this need to be changed for you?
Rachel, you're such a good mom. You're such a good
Call
mom.
me tomorrow and tell me
This
that, Caitlin.
I will send just email me back your
Yeah,
personal
right.
cell number, and I'll send you a text every morning.
Please.
We need to hear it. We need to hear it more. All of us moms, all of you listening, you're a great mom.
Mhm.
We need to hear it, but I'm just listening to you talk so with such ease. And it's just everything you're saying. I'm listening, going, oh, she's so good that she did that. She's so good that she researched that. She's so good that she's acknowledging this in her unique children. It's just so beautiful. You're doing such a good job. We talked a little bit just now about the challenges. And I think, again, everybody has been there. But what about the biggest blessing to having brought your kids home for middle school?
Oh my gosh. I think the biggest blessing during this time has been just that being able to teach them kind of real world reality
Mm-hmm.
outside of them going to school, because
Yep.
I think that when they're going to brick and mortar, they leave, my oldest right now is leaving my house at 6 a.m. every morning, and then gets back. He doesn't get back till 3 o'clock. So he thinks magically during that time, wow, the house gets cleaned up and all of this stuff
Mm-hmm.
gets done. And so now with two of the oldest at home and then the others in school, the system that we've developed is like, okay, so when they're not here, we're doing chores together.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they get home, they will do the chores tonight. And so you don't feel like you're having to do chores all day long because there's
Mm-hmm.
constantly things to pick up and constantly things to do. And so I think just being able to say, this is what I do when you're not here, and now the kids that are home, they get to see that, and they get to
Mm-hmm.
see, oh, like, I don't know, I'm sure everyone has seen, like, that there was a meme or video that went around where it was, like, the guy was like, When I put stuff on this coffee table, it's magic. Like, I put things here, and it just gets magically put away." And then he's, like, telling a police officer that, a male police officer, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I have the same magic table at my house. It's amazing." And so he's like, and I think my wife must have fell on it because I haven't seen her, like, since I told her about the table. So there's just all of this thing where they're like, "Oh, it's magical that my bed
Yep.
gets made every night." And so what's
Yeah.
happened, I think, being able to bring them home is that we've been able to really kind of lean into virtue as a habit, not
Mhm.
necessarily as, "Oh, well, I have to do all these things because this is when I get to do this," but it's virtue because I orient it to them in the respect that when dad gets home, because my husband he's in orthopedics, he works a very rigorous
Mhm.
job, so he gets home and I say, "So when dad gets here, what do you guys want from dad?" And so they're like, "Well, I want to be able to show him the things that I've done all day, or I found this
Mhm.
great thing in Minecraft that I built and I want to sit down and walk him
Mhm.
through all of the logistics of me building this. I want him to go outside and kick the soccer ball with me." And I'm like, "Okay, well, we know how your dad works, and in order for him to do that, things have to be
Mhm.
cleaned up in here because he's going to want
Mhm.
to clean it up
Mhm.
if it's not done." And so being able to orient time and the fact that, like, I know that we don't wanna do this. I know you don't wanna put away your clothes, but if we can do this now, then time actually it seems like it's much greater. It's
Mhm.
much longer, but in reality, you're just being more efficient with what you've been given. And so when dad comes home, and if we've used our time efficiently, then when he is here, time seems like it's somehow exponentially more.
Mhm.
And they really seem to respond to it in that way instead of it becoming like, "Oh, here's this checklist." We've kind of given them a telos, an end of why we do these things.
Mhm.
And it really kind of opens up the why for them and gives them that kind of motivation and purpose behind it. That's probably been
Absolutely.
the best blessing.
Absolutely. I had it on my list to ask you about, how this is going to help your kids homeschooling for middle school, how it's going to help them for high school, college, and beyond. But you answered it so beautifully throughout the conversation. And I think I just want to mention back to you that I just have heard I interviewed someone named Natalie Williams. She is an administrator over at a university. And we talked
Mm.
about how homeschooled kids actually excel above their traditionally schooled peers in college.
Wow.
And you think, why? Okay, is it just because of the academics and the rigor that we can bring home and the individualized learning? It's more than that. And so, Rachel, I'm sure you've heard this too, but when college kids get to college and they've got one or two classes, and maybe they're in the middle of the day or they're spread out, there's all this extra time. And kids need to learn how to manage that time. Like you just said,
Yeah.
when we clean at a certain time before dad gets home, it's like we've bought back extra time. Learning how to manage our time, how to manage our responsibilities. Again, take responsibility for the things that a lot of their traditionally schooled peers do not take responsibility for, like maybe unloading the dishwasher or helping prepare a meal. That all is going to prepare them for adulthood. So I think you are just laying such a fantastic foundation for your kids.
Sure, and I mean, I love to I'm sure that they're maybe not listening or maybe are listening, but I had a lot of friends in college that I will use as,
Mhm.
"This is what we're not gonna do." Like, I was
Yes,
like,
yes.
I dated a guy that had never, ever done laundry before, and he was a
Correct.
junior in college,
Yep,
or some guy that I knew that never brushed his teeth in the morning, and he
yep.
was like, "Well, no one ever taught me," and I'm like, "What is happening to the world?" So
Yes.
and so I'm telling him, like, these are all just signposts that the Lord has given me throughout my life
Yep,
to kind of hopefully for us to not repeat that. And so
definitely.
it's so true. Thank you.
Yeah. Rachel, before we wrap things up, I want to hear if you have anything left on your heart, first of all. And second of all, if a mom is listening, she's seen the title of this episode, she's feeling the call to take her kids and bring them home for middle school, maybe even for high school, and she thinks it's too late. They've already been in traditional school all this time. What advice would you give to her?
Oh my gosh. So I would say that to pray exactly with what you desire for your kid.
Mhm,
And I think for us, one of the things that we desired the most was number one to lay the foundation, like I said, of virtue.
mhm,
And I think that one of the things that happens is sometimes we'll homeschool in a need to kind of put them in some sort of bubble or to protect them from the
mhm,
world. But the truth is that that's an impossibility. I mean, you're not going to be able to protect them forever. You can't put them in a bubble and then let them go out into the world. And so we thought, well, if innocence is something that I can't grasp onto and hold on to forever, then what I can put in place of innocence is virtue. And
mm,
that way, when I do let them out into the world, they will know what darkness looks like. They will know that this is somewhere that I shouldn't be. This is something I shouldn't be doing. My heart doesn't feel
mhm,
well here. And so it was more about it's never too late to form your heart the way
mhm,
that God has created it to be. And so being able to say that and that we really wanted to take these really really special years of junior high, of middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade for us, and just say, "Gosh, I really want to form your heart." And I don't know if I ever shared that with you, but I taught middle school when I first got out of
no.
college.
Wow.
And I remember when I was researching and thinking about doing this and saying yes to this job, they said that most children, by the time they're in 8th grade, have established their value system.
Mm,
And I thought, if that's true now, then I want to help them and be a part of that value system. I don't want anyone
mm,
else to do that. And then even then, if it's high school, it is never too late. There are 85-year-old people that are on their deathbed and deciding what is right in that moment.
Mhm.
And so you can still do that, and you can still be an influence in your children's life. 18 summers, 18 years that you get. And so make the best of it. And if the Lord is calling you to do it, I would encourage you to say yes.
Great advice. Great advice. Rachel, you are such a joy. This has been so much fun for me. Like I mentioned earlier in the conversation, you are an author, a speaker. You've got your hand in a whole lot of amazing things. You just sent me the most beautiful Bible in the mail, The Story of All Stories. I'm going to link to all of those great things in the show notes below so that you can get to know Rachel a little bit better, like I have, and see all the incredible things that she is working on. Rachel, it has been such a joy to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Continued luck
much.
and blessings in all that you do with your family.
You too. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. This isn't the end of the conversation. I want to hear from you. Come say hi on Instagram, connect with me on Facebook, or leave a comment below. I want to know what today's conversation sparked in you. I read and respond to every message. Until next time, remember, you got this.